Come on in, join, welcome. I'm a bit in shambles. I just ran a 4K, so I find that's the best way to live stream. You really got to run a 4K first. That's what I do. Wait, 4K, 5K. 5K is like 4 miles. It's a bit confusing. It's them kilometers, I believe. Get them European measurements out of my runs. Okay, we're good here. All right, if you're just joining for the first time, we're going to start with some jokes in a sec, and then we'll go over basically the day's news and get everything together. So let's get started. What do I need here? Oh, chat. There we go. Oh, already a technical error. Live from a studio apartment. This is misinformation. Okay, well, today is MLK Day, and Somali daycares celebrated it by taking the day off. Yeah, I didn't show up for work today. Apparently every day is MLK Day when you're a Somali daycare. That's Don Lemon has been charged with a felony under the KKK ban. Yeah, making Don Lemon the first KKK member appointed through DEI. Yeah, they're not too happy about it. They're all, they're just a little bit upset. The one guy took his hood off. That's, of course, the KKK is actually the second time Don Lemon has been a member of a racist 3-letter organization. A little bit of casual racism from CNN there. Just one of many potential articles I could have chosen. Okay, Alberta residents lined up to sign a petition to secede from Canada and join the U.S. Yeah, Trump says he'll agree to the deal, but only if Canada agrees to a trade for Minnesota. He wants to make sure that we get something out of this deal. Okay? This is a weird one. I don't know if you guys will like this one, but anyways, I'm going to try this one out. Democrats are fighting fascism in Minnesota by storming churches, violently beating protesters, and condemning entire races of people. When asked why their actions looked eerily similar to fascism, a Democrat said, "It takes a Hitler to kill a Hitler." Only Hitler can kill Hitler, so you gotta fight fascism with fascism. That's what they say. All right. That was a lot of 4K running energy going through that monologue. All right, so we're going to pull up today's news and some notes. Let's see. Hold on one sec. All righty, there we go. So, top stories today. Don Lemon is screwed, apparently. That's tonight's top story. So, if you haven't heard, he basically accompanied a group of protesters. He says accompanied for... He claims he was doing an act of journalism. I'll kind of play the video here as we go, though. But he accompanied yesterday, this happened in Minnesota. He was with a group of protesters that stormed a church. Let me make this bigger. Yeah, so they stormed a church. This is the full video. Things got super rowdy. They were actually yelling at the churchgoers to get out, like basically telling them to leave the church towards the end of this video. But in any case, the assistant attorney general has caught wind of this, and she's saying today that Don Lemon is going to be charged with a felony. Don Lemon himself. And she's mentioned he's going to be charged probably with, it's called the KKK Act or the Klan Act, as well as the FACE Act, which, I mean, I got to be real, I've never heard of them before this news. But I looked him up a little bit. So what it is, let me kind of pull it up here. Very loud, sorry. This is the FACE Act, the first one that she's referring to here. So my understanding of the FACE Act, I can kind of read it here, but I guess it was originally started to protect people's civil liberties because, you know, abortion is legal in the United States. So I think it was originally, excuse me, related to abortion clinics and basically trying to prevent people from coming and blocking women's access to abortion clinics, okay? But it also applies to religious institutions because I think it basically touches on the 14th Amendment and everything. So it says here, it's Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act of 1994, right? The highlighted part here is what it applies to like religious institutions and stuff. It's saying that you can't intentionally injuring, intimidating, or interfering with, or attempting to injure, intimidate, or interfere any person by force, threat of force, or physical obstruction, exercising or seeking to exercise the First Amendment right of religious freedom at a place of religious worship, okay? So you can't intimidate, right? You can't interfere. You can't cause a physical obstruction, which when you're watching the video of these guys in there, it looks like they're doing all of those things, basically intimidating the churchgoers, telling them to leave, all that sort of stuff. Now, this has been used by the Biden DOJ in previous years to arrest, let's say, a group of pro-life people, post up outside of an abortion clinic, pray. Those people can actually be brought up on charges with the FACE Act for interfering with somebody trying to enter a clinic, right? What the Biden DOJ has also done is they've coupled the FACE Act with something called the Klan Act. Now, the Klan Act was brought about because it was shortly after, I think it was in like 1870s or something like that, right after the slaves were freed. Basically, there were some southern states, Democrats, if you didn't know, who weren't complying with the new rights of said freed slaves. And so they had to create an act, it's called the Klan Act, which basically penalizes anyone, that's what she said. I couldn't tell if it should be a that's what she said or a that's what he said. We'll go with that's what she said. But anyways, it penalizes anybody who's essentially conspiring to interfere with the civil rights of someone, right? So that would apply to slaves, but it's also been used in conjunction with the FACE Act. So for instance, what the Assistant Attorney General is essentially saying with Don Lemon is like he's going to be probably charged under the FACE Act initially, right? But a lot of the times when you charge someone under the FACE Act, it just ends up being a misdemeanor, right? So you can then also add on charges from the Klan Act, basically saying like they'll look at their cell phone records, this group of protesters, they'll see, did they conspire ahead of time to do this? Did they coordinate? Did they cross state lines to create a conspiracy to violate the civil rights of these churchgoers, right? And that can help upgrade the charges from a misdemeanor under the FACE Act to a felony under the Klan Act plus the FACE Act, right? So this is what Don Lemon's facing right now. I'm not a legal expert. I don't know how sticky these charges are, if they'll actually hold and, you know, he'll get prosecuted. But these are the same acts that the Biden DOJ has used to prosecute right-wingers protesting outside of abortion clinics, right? So theoretically, they can be used exactly in this type of an instance. It is just super funny, though, that Don Lemon, the first black gay KKK member, first of all, charged on MLK Day under the Klan Act. He hasn't been charged yet, I should clarify. The Assistant Attorney General has just come out and explained the charges. I'll actually play a little bit of her talking about him here so you guys can get some context.
In this case, I see various crimes that have occurred. Exactly what they are, I'm not going to flag, but the FACE Act has been mentioned as one of the predicates there. In other cases, the Biden DOJ used the Klan Act conspiracy charges tacked on to the FACE Act in the case of protests outside abortion clinics to bring much longer sentences. So there are a number of tools available to us. Who funded this? What else? What other crimes may have occurred? Was there a use of the wires or the mails in preparing for this event? Did anyone cross state lines to do this. All of those are potential predicates for additional federal charges.
Harmeet, I've just pulled up the Klan Act because this is the first time that I've heard this mentioned. This is a act that was passed in 1871, correction there, to combat the Ku Klux Klan and protect African Americans' voting rights, especially the Enforcement Act, which is known as the Force Act. So here's some of the information on screen. Would you mind breaking down for us, because we have just read the FACE Act and how this is an affinity to the FACE Act, an obvious and egregious demonstrable violation of the FACE Act, because they were entering a place of worship, harassing and threatening. We just played a video of a
statutes, and it goes back to the time when President Lincoln emancipated the slaves, and yet the something used against law enforcement, but is now used against others as well. So whenever anyone conspires to violate the protected civil rights of American citizens, the Klan Act can be used to bring a conspiracy charge.
So that's the Assistant Attorney General there explaining how the Klan Act can be used to bring a conspiracy charge. Now, did Don Lemon is contesting that he was actually a part of the protest. He's basically claiming, no, I was just documenting it. I have questions, first of all, as to how Don Lemon even got there in the first place. The Assistant Attorney General actually brings this up later in the video, but she says that they're going to be looking into who funded the protests to begin with, which I think is a very good question to ask, because I don't think this just sprung up out of nowhere. I think it's a very obvious provocation towards conservatives. It looks very staged, like let's ramp up, let's escalate things, let's get Don Lemon in there to friggin' film it and put it on his show. And it worked. You know, it was all over the news for an entire news cycle. But I don't know that Don Lemon anticipated being charged. So, in any case, he claims he was just documenting the protests. Here's Don Lemon thanking so during the protests, there was a guy, I'm going to call him Crazy Beard Guy. Crazy Beard Guy was like yelling at all of the Christians in church towards the end of the video. I'll kind of play a little bit of it here. Here's Crazy Beard Guy.
See what happens. Hey, you are a fake Christian. Why are you not standing with your Somali and Latino communities? Why do I not see you out at Whipple every day protesting this attack on humanity? Where are you? You're sinners. You're pretending to be Christians. But we know you live an easy life, don't you? A very easy to a man wearing a suit is a preacher to Jesus. The people, stop. Out now. Out now.
You can actually hear him shouting out now at people, which is particularly egregious when it comes to the FACE Act, because he's actually telling people to get out of the building, right? Totally intimidation and obstruction, all right? Now, here's Don Lemon thanking Crazy Beard Guy for his service after the protest.
The uniform now, you think they're patriots?
I don't think so, especially those ICE agents.
That's
No,
what I'm talking
hell no.
about. Yeah.
Well, no, they're terrorists. They're traitors.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for your service. I appreciate.
Today we had the honor to protest.
Thank you for your service, as if they are military veterans. So that's Don Lemon there. Here's the opening of Don Lemon's show where he acknowledges that he's aware that they're about to enter a church.
To Minneapolis a little bit ago and did some reconnaissance on the ground, speaking to an organization there that's gearing up for resistance and protest. I've been pleasantly surprised to see the community coming together. Diverse community. If you see this, when we first pulled up, we're like, wait a minute, which operation are we at? And as it turns out, because we're like, well, this is kind of MAGA coded, right? Saw the American flag or whatever, but these are resistance protesters. They're planning an operation that we're going to follow them on. I can't tell you exactly what they're doing, but it's called Operation Pull Up, and it's Takima Armstrong, and she has been doing this since George Floyd, Dante Wright, and others, where they surprise people, catch them off guard, and hold them to account. And so that's what we're doing here, and then
holds them to account, he says. So he's very aware of what they're about to do. He's not notifying authorities, right? He's basically a co-conspirator if they're all being charged with conspiracies, right? At least that's what a lot of people are saying. I mean, it looks like he's clearly supportive of the protests. You know, he calls these guys resistance fighters. He says that for a second they looked MAGA coded, which is a weird thing to say. These people are weird. Dude, everything in their world is like, they hear dog whistles that apparently only Democrats can hear for white supremacy and MAGA and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, so there's Don Lemon, aware that they're about to storm the church, supportive of the protesters. Here's crazy beard guy telling he's heard about the charges today. He's telling Pam Bondi to come get him.
Yesterday, I went into a church with Nikema Armstrong, and
Good that he just openly, everything's documented, and I particularly appreciate the captions.
protested these white supremacists. A pastor of the church is a fucking ICE leader in the city. How can you...
I'd like to know more about that, actually. I haven't looked that up too much, but what's the deal? Why does this guy keep saying that the pastor is like an ICE agent or an ICE leader? I don't know what that is. I'll try to look it up for tonight's show, or for tomorrow night's show, sorry.
You be a fucking pastor and be a fucking ICE agent. Fuck them. They want to come after me? Fuck them.
Yeah, but this is the whole thing, right? Like, why are they doing these crazy things? Why are they being so vile? Because they believe that they're righteous, right? You can justify almost anything if you believe that you're righteous. Ironically, the actual Nazis, I'm sure, believed that what they were doing was righteous, right? They were saving their country. They were eliminating what they viewed in their time as being the MAGA people of their culture, right? The opposition that was destroying their country, right? It's a righteous thing to do. They're just clearing them out. This guy, same attitude, right? F the pastor, F the church. They're all white supremacists. It's about dehumanizing people so that you can take these types of actions without having any kind of moral guilt about it. Feeling pretty good about it, actually. But I can tell you, Pam Bondi is going to come for this guy. So, yeah, not looking so good for Crazy Beard. Nikki Minaj just still with the funny tweets. I guess she was calling out Don Lemon today. This contains some bad language from Nikki Minaj, by the way. The tweet, but here's her tweet towards Don Lemon. You can see it down here. Just goes off on him.
Tweet about me. I usually don't respond to this stuff, but let me just say this. Nicki Minaj, stop talking about shit for which you know nothing about. This is out of your depth, by the way, and you are a homophobic bigot. You don't care about African Americans, and you're not an African American. From what I know, you are reportedly an undocumented citizen, so you should be deported under Donald Trump's rules. And the other thing is that your family members, you have one family member who is reportedly a sex offender, the other family member, your husband or whatever, a sex offender is your husband, and one of
This is going off.
them is reportedly a pedophile. And you have nerve to talk about me and what you think that I do? Nicki Minaj.
That's funny. He does. Don Lemon is one of the most egregious people that, if there's any criticism of him, he plays the gay card, right? He says it in this next interview here too. Oh gosh, Lemon. Yeah, here. This particularly angers me.
And there's a certain degree of entitlement. I think people who are, in the religious groups like that, it's not the type of Christianity that I practice, but I think that they're entitled, and that entitlement comes from a supremacy, a white supremacy. And they think
The Christians of the church are entitled white supremacists. That's racist. Right there. Right? He's calling Nicki Minaj a racist. He's a racist.
that this country was built for them, that it is a Christian country, when actually we left England because we wanted religious freedom. It's religious freedom, but only if you're a Christian and only if you're a white male, pretty much. And so, yeah, I absolutely 100%, but it's an intimidation tactic. And, I said, I don't understand how I've become the face of it when I was a journalist. I do understand that I'm the biggest name there. And I'm also, as I was on with my producers this morning, you and Kylie talk all the time. My producers were saying, I said, how did I become the face of this? And my producer said, Don, you're a gay black man in America. And there's a certain...
Okay. Let me just say, the criticism of Don Lemon from the right in particular has never been, ever, about the fact that he's gay or black. 0%. No one ever has cared about that, ever. Or mentioned it, as far as I know. The criticism of Don Lemon is about him being racist and being biased back when he was on CNN and then here now. That's literally it. And it's funny to me, like you watch him here and you can see how entrenched he is with these leftists, right? He's here supporting the protesters as resistance fighters. This guy was the face of CNN for like years. He was supposed to be their unbiased reporter. Remember what you would call them biased in CNN? No, or unbiased reporters. It was him and Cuomo. I think it was Chris Cuomo. Those were the two guys for CNN. And now you see his true colors. These were the guys that they had as their two main unbiased reporters. But yeah, never about homophobia or racism. That's the easy way out for these guys, right? Always a victim. All right, so that's the stuff. I think that's it on... Well, I mean, there's this guy on Twitter who raises a good point. His name's Luke Rudowski, I guess. He just says here, ask yourself this. If Biden was the president, what would he do to a bunch of groypers and right-wingers if they disrupted a synagogue or a Muslim prayer? Which I think is kind of a good way to view the charges against Don Lemon, right? If this were a group of MAGA people that interrupted a Muslim prayer under Biden, he 100% would have thrown every charge in the book at him. And actually... there was recently in the news a group of, I believe they were right-wingers who did interrupt a Muslim prayer. And they were hit with, I think, charges under the FACE Act, I believe. Or maybe it was a local Florida act. They were reduced, however, from a felony to misdemeanor charges. So we'll see how that ends up. But, yeah, they would have done the same thing. So I give full endorsement for the Attorney General to come after them just as Biden would have done. Had they not been so crazy about prosecuting political prisoners, the J6 people, prosecuting people that prayed at abortion clinics, I might be a little bit more lenient, right? But as it stands, I think you have to fight fire with fire in this instance. Okay, what else we got going on today? I just have like notes. There's like headings for these. ICE is one heading. This was a good story out of, I believe this was Minnesota. People were complaining there. Every story about ICE is either out of Minnesota or Portland. So I guess people were complaining. This guy here was, they used a battering ram or one of those little rams to knock down his door, take him out of the home. And it turns out he wasn't the guy they were looking for. So they had to bring him back, right? And a bunch of leftists were saying, oh, look at this as an example of them violating his civil rights. And they're coming after people and banging down their doors. I don't know if I want this one or the DHS tweet. Here's the DHS tweet. They kind of go over what exactly happened. They say, yesterday in St. Paul, ICE conducted a targeted operation of 2 convicted sex offenders. One of the criminal targets had convictions for sex with a minor and sexual assault. The other target had convictions for sex assault with penetration in the first degree, domestic violence, and violating a protective order. Both also have convictions for failure to register as sex offenders. Real gems that the Democrats are defending here. They both have final orders of removal from an immigration judge, so apparently they're just hiding. This U.S. citizen in the photo, that guy, right here, this individual lives with these 2 convicted sex offenders at the site of the operation, so at the residence. The individual refused to be fingerprinted or facially ID'd. He matched the description of the targets. As with any law enforcement agency, it's standard protocol to hold all individuals in a house of an operation for safety of the public and law enforcement. Both of the sexual predators remain at large in St. Paul. Okay, and they're going to provide the public with updates, all right? So this guy is apparently harboring, or at least living with, 2 sex offenders. And he's apparently doing everything in his power to interfere with ICE when they come for their operation. He's not identifying himself. And so they're saying that they had to secure everyone from the house, but the sex offenders are still missing. So this is another, the Democrats keep coming out with these stories about all of this horrible Gestapo activity, and then more often than not, I see a clarifying tweet from DHS which tells you that they are sex offenders or something along those lines. I think we should just rebrand at this point the term sanctuary cities to Epstein Islands. Because despite how much Democrats call for the Epstein list, the Epstein client list to be released, they seem to like harboring pedophiles and sex offenders. Epstein's Harbor, Epstein cities. It's basically what they're creating, right? I don't like the term sanctuary cities anymore. Here's Dave Rubin on sanctuary cities. He says that they're unconstitutional and that the mayors of those cities should be kicked out of office. Listen.
One of the few things that the federal government is supposed to do that the founders knew could eventually become sort of conflicted with states' rights was deal with immigration. So these people, by their very definition of having sanctuary cities and not working with federal authorities and everything else, they should be kicked out of office. They are violating the Constitution of the United States. Moron Zamboni should have never been allowed to sworn in New York, and Fry and they should all be kicked out of office. I know that's not how it works, but it's that Geico commercial.
That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I don't understand how they're allowed to just have these, like, sanctuary cities. It doesn't make sense. I mean, what we're talking about here is only allowing American citizens into the country, and somehow they've got all these legal loopholes where they're able to funnel illegal immigrants into their cities and not comply with federal agents who come to remove them, not comply with federal guidelines, because they're trying to smuggle in voters in a quid pro quo so that they'll, of course, vote for them. We saw what happened in Minnesota, where if you get enough Somalis in there and give them a bunch of free money and they don't actually have to work or establish these businesses that they claim that they need the money for, you know, you're basically creating a draw for immigrants to come in, you know, into a welfare state where they're going to vote for you over and over again, right? So yeah, sanctuary cities, I don't know how they would be unconstitutional exactly. I'd have to do more research on that, but it seems unconstitutional, right? It's kind of like he says in the video, like, this isn't how any of this should work, especially with people's voting rights, right? Okay, and then we got voting here. This is Elon Musk saying that without voter ID, democracy is a lie. Which is true. That's the basis of democracy, right? Everyone who lives in your country should be the ones who are voting. Pretty basic principle, right? What's the way to be certain of that? Well, you would need to identify those people and make sure that they're actually citizens. If you can't, and you eliminate that safeguard, then Russia can vote in our elections, right? Theoretically. They would just need to send over enough Russians to these sanctuary cities, and then they get a vote. They can just pick the president, basically. Any country could. Donald Trump, this was in response to a tweet from Trump saying, and which I love, it's a great way to frame things. He says, rigged elections are common in the U.S., with the presidential election of 2020 being the granddaddy of them all. We demand voter ID. That's just such a great phrase. He always says things like just in a kind of a simple way that people can understand, in a kind of kitschy way, old-timey sometimes. The granddaddy of them all is just something that everyone, it's going to stick with you, you know? And I think that probably was the granddaddy of them all, frankly. So you have Trump there. Other stuff in the news today. What time are we at? I guess this hasn't been that long, but we're going to wrap it up soon here. This is just assorted random news. Apparently there's a solar flare today. Some things like I have no idea about, and then I just open Twitter and there's an Armageddon going down. This was one of those things. All of a sudden there's all these tweets about solar flare that's happening tonight, and it's already hit the magnetosphere. It's actually, I guess, it has the potential to extend the Aurora Borealis down into the southern states. I don't think I can see it. I'm gonna look out my window right now. That's like one of my life's dreams, by the way, is to see the Aurora Borealis before I die. But you never, even during these storms, they've happened before, you know, they never reach San Diego. That shit don't come down here. Ain't no unexpected weather events in San Diego. So, but the funny thing about this, so I mean, everyone online, or there were a bunch of people online saying, I guess, there are these theories that, like, when there are these solar flares, they coincide with historic times of turmoil in history. And they had Grok pull a chart where it was, like, connecting, like, certain solar flares that had happened to, like, the start of World War II, or the rise of Hitler in Germany, or, you know, famines in countries, or, like, it had a whole list. It was like 20 different bullet points of how these connected to different historical events. Which my take on that is, there's also just a lot of stuff that happens in history, right? There's a lot of bad stuff, pretty much all the time. So whether you're looking at solar flares or some other event you're trying to correlate it with, I'm sure you can make a correlation between anything. There's just too many events to connect to if you wanted to, right? So I'm not sure that that will be true. Although, like I said, there's enough bad stuff that happens in history that it's entirely possible we do see some craziness over the next week. And people will say it was the solar flare. Maybe. Here's somebody saying the... Get ready for people to act nuts during and after this historic space weather event, especially world leaders. I don't know about that. We'll see. There are going to be some crazy world leaders. How's that not going to happen? Okay, this was some science news today. DNA study reveals, this was from All Day Astronomy is the account. They say DNA study reveals humans nearly vanished 800,000 years ago with just 1,280 people repopulating Earth. Isn't that crazy? Do you guys think that's true, first of all? I would say I'm skeptical about their ability to narrow this down through researching DNA. Maybe. I guess that's what they're saying, is when they look at the DNA, it probably shares common traits with, like, I don't know how they can figure out it's 1,200 or whatever it is, but I guess that's the amount of variation or something. I believe maybe that's possible. If that's true, that's a crazy thought. Like, that's basically... That's like a third of my high school class size. Right? Imagine that. And then Grok clarified it too. It said that there were 1,280 breeding individuals, it called them, surviving for around 117,000 years. How would you like to have a 1,200 person dating pool for 117,000 years? That can't be true, right? That's got to be a typo from Grok. I don't know. See, he says 100,000 years, 1,200 people just hooking it up. Had to be a bunch of drama up in that group. You could basically never get away from your ex. They were always, like, right there. I don't know. I don't know how true that is, but it's interesting to think about. Okay, if you're just joining now, might do some jokes again. Let's see if I can get my... Oh, well, don't look at these. Gosh. Spoiler alert. I have a teleprompter for my jokes, all right? Let me see if I can get this working a little bit. We'll do a couple. Then I'll sign off. All right. Okay. Well, today is MLK Day, and Somali daycares celebrated it by taking the day off. Yeah. Apparently every day is MLK Day when you're a Somali daycare. take a lot of days off. Well, Don Lemon has been charged with a felony under the Klan Act, making Don Lemon the first KKK member appointed through DEI. Yeah. You can see they're none too happy about that. Yeah. Then one guy took his hood off. I gotta get this. Hold on one sec. Stupid teleprompter. Of course, the KKK is actually the second time. Of course, the KKK is actually the second time Don Lemon has been a member of a racist three-letter organization. Yeah. Just one of many articles I could have chosen to illustrate the point. A little bit of casual racism there from CNN. Well, Alberta residents lined up to sign a petition to secede from Canada and join the U.S. Yeah. Now, Trump says he'll agree to the deal, but only if Canada agrees to a trade for Minnesota. Yeah. He wants to make sure we get something out of the deal. Yeah. Can't end up with nothing from it. Democrats are fighting fascism in Minnesota by storming churches, violently beating protesters, and condemning entire races of people. Yeah, when asked why their actions looked eerily similar to fascism, a Democrat said, "It takes a Hitler to kill a Hitler." Only Hitler can kill himself. He's the only one that can do it. You gotta fight fascism with fascism. One more time for the latecomers. Today's MLK Day, and Somali daycares celebrated it by taking the day off. Yeah. Apparently every day is MLK Day when you're a Somali daycare. Well, Don Lemon has been charged with a felony under the KKK ban, making Don Lemon the first KKK member appointed through DEI. Yeah. You can see they're none too happy about it. One guy took his hood off. Of course, the KKK is actually the second time Don Lemon has been a member of a racist three-letter organization. Okay, did you guys get enough jokes? All right, well, that's it for tonight. Thanks everyone for joining, and I'll be back tomorrow. I do a live stream every night, 9 p.m. Pacific time. I think it airs at like midnight on the East Coast. And then there's also a Substack now, a newsletter. So you can subscribe to the newsletter. It's just missedinformationnews.substack.com. Go there. You can subscribe for free. And then you will get every morning in your inbox, it's going to be basically a rundown of the day's news. So it's essentially all of my show notes and all the tweets and everything that I have here, and some stuff I don't go over that I put into a newsletter form. You'll get that in the inbox so you can keep abreast, that's what he said, of the day's news, and then you can catch the